Hello class, welcome to the first video lecture for this uh, advertising and promotional strategy course. This is the first chapter and this is the introductory lesson titled The World of Integrated Marketing Communication. And the learning outcomes will be to define promotion and integrated marketing communication, to discuss a basic model of communication, describe the different ways of classifying audiences for promotion and integrated marketing communication, explain the key roles of integrated marketing communication as a business process. In order to start this conversation, we need to think that there is an evolution in the promotion paradigm, in the way that promotion and advertising activities have been traditionally conducted, which, by the way, and we will talk about that in a couple of more chapters when we look to the historical development of promotion. But advertising has been around not only for decades, but basically for centuries or longer, since there has been a capability to print materials, because advertising activities, for example, require a mass-mediated communication, a vehicle to amplify a message rather than limiting a one-on-one personal communication. So advertising in the way that we know it, and promotion in general, the way that we are used to, is changing and shifting in a way that in the last few years has been more clearly visualized or illustrated in new technologies, mobile technologies, digital marketing activities, online communications through the internet capabilities. So there is a big difference in the rules and the assumptions of traditional marketing and promotional activities that in the last 15, 20 something years has dramatically moved into a new stage with new rules for which there is still unexplored territory. But we will talk about that over the rest of the semester. For the purpose of this first chapter, we need to think not only about what are these technological driven changes that we are witnessing, but also what else is changing besides the communication vehicles, besides the technologies. Well, we can say also that consumers are changing. So not only the way we reach them and we talk to them and we communicate and send messages, but also the expectation, the demands, the criticism of consumers. These are areas that should not be overlooked by marketers. Let's start formally with this chapter by distinguishing advertising and promotion. These are sometimes used interchangeably. Even in this course, I will, from time to time, refer to promotion and advertising as being part of the same idea. But in reality, formally speaking, we should clarify what they are and what they are not, because they are not the same. They are not the same, although they are connected, right? They are related. But let's try to understand this better by remembering what is the marketing mix. If you recall from your principles of marketing class or your introduction to marketing class, whatever you have taken that introductory course, remember that marketing mix are the so-called 4 Ps: product, right? The design, the development, the pricing at which you market your product and you expect consumers to pay in exchange of the benefits, the distribution or the place that was initially labeled, because back in those days when these terms were originated, uh, most of the goods had to be distributed through a brick and mortar establishment, right? So that's why it was labeled place, which is now distribution, and promotion, which is one of the components of the marketing mix. And this is precisely the element, the tools that we are dealing with in this course. Promotion is the communication process in marketing that is used to create a favorable predispositions toward a brand of product or service. So we will focus in this course on promotion, and we should not forget that this is just one out of the different elements in the marketing mix. Now, within promotion, we have advertising. It's not the only promotional tool, but this is perhaps the most salient, the most prominent, the one that people think mostly about when they hear about marketing and business communications and commercials. Yeah, if you tell your friends or relatives, your parents, that you are studying marketing in college, well, they will more likely think about advertising activities. However, advertising is not the same as promotion, but is part of the different tools of promotion. We will see the others later today. And advertising is a paid, mass-mediated attempt to persuade an audience. Let's look in more detail this definition. A paid, mass-mediated attempt to persuade an audience. Let's look at those 3 elements, which are the conditions for considering your promotional activity being advertising. First, you have to pay for it. If the communication is not paid for, then it is not advertising. It may be something else, maybe public relations, something else. But if there is no a payment for in exchange of sending the message, in exchange of reaching the customer with the message, then it is not advertising. It has to be, number 2, mass mediated. And this means that it's not a personal one-on-one communication, but is a one-to-many relationship, a communication that goes from one origin or source to many members of the population or the audience, and this is because the media, the communication vehicle, allows to amplify this message and magnify it. So when we say that advertising is mass mediated, we mean that it is delivered through a communication medium designed to reach more than one person in a mass scale. And 3, this condition is also necessary, and this is that the advertisement informs the consumer for some purpose, usually to try to persuade of something, changing a pattern of behavior, such as stop smoking, right? Such as don't use the cell phone while driving, right? Or the more traditional or conventional type of commercial purposes, which is persuading you, convincing you to try a brand, to try a new product, to take advantage of a sales promotion offer, a discount, etc. So these are the 3 conditions for advertisement. And if you have access to your CourseMate platform, in case that you got it with your textbook, you can go to the first chapter material, which is available in CourseMate. You can go through Blackboard, and you have instructions on this in Blackboard in order to, and in the syllabus you can find the course key to register this access code. But if you have access, you can go into the videos available for chapter 1, and for example, take a look to the McDonald's commercials and try to identify what is the message they send through that commercial, which is funny, by the way, and what is what they are trying to persuade people of, doing what is the image they want to project, what is the belief or attitude they intend viewers to keep in their minds. So for example, in order to clarify or get a better understanding of these concepts, if we see, for example, that Will Smith appeared on the Late Show with David Letterman, but this was not a paid appearance, right? But it was just an invitation. This is not advertisement. It is publicity, maybe, because the producer or the film studio did not pay David Letterman show, but they have this guest and they benefit by interviewing Will Smith, and this increases the rating and the audience and gets exposure for the celebrity. So this is a win-win situation. On one side, Will Smith will get exposure to the public. On the other side, the television network or the producer will get higher audience levels. But there was no money in exchange here. Now you have some communication benefits, some marketing and promotional benefits that are served, but it's not advertising. Advertising would be, in any case, the second example here, where you have a traditional commercial produced by an agency, in this case about a movie, and they run advertisements in television, in newspaper. So yes, this is advertising because it's communication paid for. You may have other instances like this one at the bottom of this table of Exhibit 1.1. United Kingdom's Health Education Authority prepares a message that urges readers to wear condom. Print media runs the message. Well, this is a public service announcement because the source is a non-profit. This is a government agency or a non-commercial entity. And since this is not paid for, but is offering the public interest, this is not considered advertising. Maybe the Trojans brand commercials in the media, which is paid for, this will be commercial. So different, similar purposes, but because they come from different sources or the origin of these messages, then we have different classifications of these communication tools. Now let's revisit this concept of promotional mix. Advertising is one of the different elements or tools within the promotional mix. So we said earlier, you have a marketing mix, the 4 P's. One of those 4 P's is the P of promotion. And within promotion, you have a variety of tools and activities that can be implemented to communicate, to establish conversations and reach your audiences, your targets. And these are various, like the ones we see here. The most common, of course, advertising, but also self-promotion. Also direct marketing, which is connected to database marketing. We will talk about that later. Personal sellings, right? This is a one-on-one communication or relation that you establish with customers. Public relations. These are parts of the promotional mix. But also you have some tools that are more not necessarily new. Some of these are, but these are in a trend upwards that are being utilized by many business sectors, such as event sponsorships, right? Point of purchase in stores, social media, branded entertainment. So a firm that is interested in establishing a promotional mix plan as part of a marketing program should consider not just one of these tools, which many cases is only advertisement, but should take into consideration the possibility of utilizing maybe direct marketing, maybe self-promotion, together with personal selling, complemented with point of purchase ads or displays, social media, which of course online and internet communications and channels are now highly utilized. These are not by themselves like one of these single tools, a silver bullet that will do everything and that will be the solution for your communication challenges. That's usually not the case. Usually you want to utilize these tools depending on the purpose that you have, depending on this product category, the maturity of the brand, the competition. So there is not a recipe that is a single recommendation that will work in all situations. So that's why marketers, business administration students like you who are learning about marketing discipline realize that this is a human process. You don't get into a computer that you just press a button and will give you a printout with a marketing plan. This is a human process where you have to think, analyze, weigh and consider alternatives, resources. So that's what a marketing plan elaboration is about. Writing a blueprint of what to do, what goals to accomplish, and which strategies using tools from the promotional mix to achieve the goals and objectives. And this is normally reflected in a plan that should be integrated in terms of having communication tools that work together to create the desired effects. What is integrated marketing communications, or IMC, as you will see throughout your textbook, throughout the material that we use in class and the slides, etc. IMC, integrated marketing communications, is the process of using a wide range of promotional tools like the ones we just saw in the previous slide, together in combination, in coordination, to create widespread brand exposure. And a well-coordinated promotional mix to target customers in different ways and achieve broad exposure for the brand while keeping a consistent brand message is the key for having a well-planned IMC campaign, because this is something that is a process. Normally, if you, for example, plan to launch a new product, well, you want to consider the different tools of the promotional mix in different stages, not necessarily all of them at the same time, but in different stages so that they create the desired outcomes in consumers. So maybe before launching formally a product or a new brand, you want to create some teasers or mystery advertising materials to prepare the segments of consumers that you go after, to generate this expectation, anticipation maybe, and then in a different stage later use other tools of the promotional mix, maybe public relations, maybe other formats of advertising, to inform the audience. And later on use, for example, sales promotions to trigger and to incentivize purchases, right, in a more immediate result. So IMC is something that should be looked as a process. It's more complex than just throwing out commercials and advertisements at the same time out there. But at the end, the goal is to generate the desired results, right? And that varies and depends from company to company, product to product. These are all efforts that we see in advertising campaigns, right? Which are well-defined, coordinated efforts that focus on a single theme or idea about a brand. And this example that you have on your screen, the Geico's Caveman campaign, that was very successful in terms of awareness. Almost everybody knew about it and recalled the characters, the brand. And what is this single theme or idea about the brand that Geico's tried to project? well, it was not the caveman per se. That was part of the creative elements used to get the message across to the audience. But let's see if we can, well, we will be able to watch this short commercial, but hopefully you can listen to what they say in this Geico's commercial. So this was the commercial basically saying it's so easy to use Geicos and to call them and contact them that even a caveman can do it, right? So it's kind of a mixture of funny um, elements in that commercial, but the focal point, the single thing was about simplicity. So easy that even a caveman can do it. Get a quote and change from your current insurance to them. So that is a very clearly oriented campaign with very well-defined objectives and overall a single theme that they could have used other creative elements to tell the same message, but they went over through with the caveman, and it was something well received by consumers. So I'm talking about the reception or how customers receive messages. Let's look at this exhibit 1.2, which depicts a model of mass-mediated communication. At the end, what we as marketers in charge of promotion want to do is get a message across through the audience that will receive the message in a context and will understanding in certain way with certain meanings depending on cultural background, in individual differences, in situational context. So this is like a feedback that you see in this model, whereas the production of the advertising or the promotion material, whatever type of promotional tool you use, decides a way to reach an audience with the expectation that it will be received and understood and perceived in the desired way. But there is a feedback in terms of the measurement of the result. What you want is not just to throw the message from the left to the right, but also get a type of result or measurable outcome that you can monitor in order to tell whether the performance was the one that was expected. There are a number of players that have to be incorporated into this equation, which are the companies, partners, networks, and media networks, advertising agencies, which are the ones who actually will do the commercial, the printed material, the creative part, and government, of course, right? So there are rules, regulations. Federal Trade Commission has a responsibility of overlooking, sorry, not overlooking, overseeing, sorry, overseeing the um, promotional activities through different instruments they have in the law. And there are challenges, right? There is no control on the way that the reception of the messages of the promotions will be um, on the side of consumers. You have control on the production, but not on the reception. So these are independent, at least partially, um, processes. There is no control on how people will talk, for example, about a commercial of your brand in social media. And we have seen this lately with Super Bowl commercials, for example, that people don't like it, right? And companies spend millions of dollars. I think one 30 seconds advertising piece in halftime of Super Bowl is somewhere between 4 million and 5 millions only for one commercial. So people just take it, talk about it in social media, may be happy with it or may destroy it, and some campaigns backfire, right, against the brands. So there is no, and this is probably the most challenging part of this, is that no single meaning to all audiences. So that's why it's important to conduct research, market research, um, in order to decide the better ways to design a campaign, the messages, the appeals, the positioning that you that you pursue. I'm talking about this interpretation, right? The way that audiences accommodate the meanings, and how these messages are interpreted. Some of you may have heard, for example, of this iconic, very emblematic commercial that was launched in the 80s. And this was an Apple company commercial announcing the launch of the Macintosh. And it was kind of very well remembered because it was full of meanings. It was this woman, we will see it in a minute, this woman that goes and breaks into a place that is full of obedient um, followers of the Big Brother. Actually, this was back in 1984, in resemblance of the novel by George Orwell, the novel 1984, which was about this Big Brother that was kind of a dictator that controlled people. And the analogy that Apple company tried to do here was that the Big Brother, this cold kind of robot that controls everybody, was the competitor, IBM. And even in the colors, if you see, for example, the way that the producers of this ad, the creative and artistic participants or designers of this ad, utilize the colors like the blue, the cold, the dark, more to resemble IBM. Even in the logo, you can see like these lines, very um, mechanical, kind of cold impression, versus the colorful, the variety of tonalities, the excitement of Macintosh. Let's watch this commercial. If you don't listen, it's because this recording does not allow you to do that. So that'll be IBM, the one on the screen, and all the IBM users. You see them there. They are like robots, like zombies, we will see today. And here it comes, Apple's Macintosh, to liberate, at least metaphorically, liberate them from IBM. And, and you see how they play one more time with different meanings, that in order to understand, you have to be of certain, I'm not gonna say intellectual level, but certain basic level of education, just to know that they were talking about George Orwell's 1984 book, right? So you have to have certain basic um, connection to that, and of course the type of audience and the market segment that back in those days use a computer were a part of a narrow group of consumers. Nowadays, um, over 30 years after, everybody uses computers and laptops, and you have uh, internet connection through your smartphone. But back then, really the people who could use a desktop computer, a personal computer, they were not many, right, in proportion. So this has to do with this um, theme of the accommodation and the negotiation and the reception of messages. Now let's talk about the audiences that receive the messages of promotion. First, recall that the audience is the group of individuals that may receive and interpret the promotional message, but you want to focus and you want to identify who are those target audiences. That um, simply said, these are a particular group of consumers singled out, distinguished for an advertising or promotion campaign. Yeah, even though lots of people would be exposed to your promotional efforts and they will receive the impressions, not all of them will necessarily be part of your target audience. Hopefully you narrow down and you are very precise to orient and send and direct your messages to only those target audience members. But in most of the cases, this will be impressions to the broad population. But part of that population will be your target audience. They will be within those broader populations. And here we have to look at what categories of audiences you are targeting, because this is something that will go in a marketing plan, right? You want to be familiar with the terminology, with the language used in business and marketing in particular, and you have to state in a marketing plan, in a promotional program, this is a campaign that is focused on household consumers, for example, right? Which is the broadest, probably the broadest category in terms of units, in terms of number of consumers. But maybe your campaign is not directed to household consumers, but is directed to members of business organizations. This will be B2B marketing, right? The previous one would be B2C, business to consumer, you as a business talking to consumers. but this one will be business to other businesses. Sometimes will be not to other businesses that you sell your computers for the use in their activities, in their operations, etc. But maybe you will sell to what is called members of the trade channels. As a computer manufacturer, you can sell to consumers, final individual consumers. You can sell to schools, government offices, other businesses that use your computers, or to retailers, distributors, intermediaries who are members of the trade channel and in turn will sell your computers or your merchandise, whatever you sell. Maybe you will sell to individual professionals, right? Maybe you will target government officials and employees. Now, in terms of audience geography, from a geographical standpoint, what is your promotion efforts going to be oriented to? Is this going to be on a global scale where you basically use the same message in the same way without many changes all over the world? Or do you engage in promotion which is called more international, in terms that you prepare and play different messages in different national markets, so you adapt not only the products but the messages? Because unlike the global promotion, in the international promotion, for example, companies that have same products lines sold in different international markets, it is necessary to adjust and adapt those products and the messages. Or is it going to be just national promotion, right? Something that reaches all geographical areas within one nation, and this is probably the most the type of promotion in terms of geographical criteria, the one that we are more used to, right? At least in television, in social media, internet. Of course, there are lower levels or smaller geographical location levels, such as regional promotion, local promotion, right? We are bombarded with promotional activities from HEB, for example, right? Well, HEB is not all over the US. Some may think that they are all over the US, but they are not. So HEB does regional promotion, not national, because they are not all over the world. They do some international, by the way, because they have stores in other countries, like in Mexico. As far as I know, that's the only country outside of the United States. So these are ways to understand and make sense of the topics in promotional activities that will help you determine the best way to design a promotional campaign. One more time, you can do it without planning. You can do a marketing program without much preparation, but the chances of failure will be greater if not considering these different aspects before engaging into the implementation and the investment and the expenditure of budget. So going back to the integrated marketing communication process, as part of a larger business activity, let's recall that we are dealing with marketing, which includes and incorporates decisions regarding to the product design, the conception, and also the pricing and the distribution, but importantly, the promotion. And this promotion is reflected in the way that that the firms communicates with their consumers, with their audiences, by means of the promotional part of the marketing mix. Now, what are the roles that we can outline for integrated marketing communication? First, integrated marketing communications supports the marketing mix. Is a key tool in that whatever is done in the other parts or components of the marketing mix, the other piece, is something that directly affects the promotional message. Maybe you do a change in the product specifications, in the product features, in the design. So that's something that will be informed through the promotion. If the pricing strategy is maybe low budget, or maybe the opposite, upscale, premium branding, and exclusive sort of positioning that requires higher prices, that is something that should be reflected in your promotion. If you're gonna sell top of the line products in a category, well, you want to convey this message of exclusivity, status, luxury through your materials, through your commercials, right, through your advertising. Now, another role that is critical in the purposes of integrated marketing communication is supporting the brand management. And what do we mean by this? These are the purposes of your brand management. You want probably to inform and persuade through your promotional activities, which is a very basic and essential level. You want to tell people you are there. You want to inform that you have new flavors in your cereals. You want to inform that your beverage is low sugar now. You have a low sodium or diet or low calories version. You want to inform about a brand that is new, about an extension of an existing brand, for introducing it to the market, and tell that you are now selling toothbrush with characters of a movie or cartoon that your children like. Sometimes you don't want to inform or introduce new products, but you simply want to build and maintain loyalty, right? So you can build brand equity. Remember, brand equity is this differential effect on the response of consumers towards a product that has no brand and product that has your brand. If you see a bag of coffee and you don't know the brand, you may have an attitude and you may have an intention to pay certain amount of dollars, but if you know that that coffee is a well-known brand, I don't know, like Starbucks or something like that, well, your attitudes change, your willingness to pay more, of course, will be higher, etc. Sometimes the goal of brand management is to create an image and meaning for the brand. Remember the ad that we just saw of Apple's Macintosh 1984? We just saw not long ago these promotional activities by companies such as Tide that were here in Texas after Hurricane Harvey, right? What they are trying to do is not to introduce a new product or brand. They don't want to persuade you that their detergent is better, but they want to create an image and meaning and associations with, about their brand. And number 5, building and maintaining brand loyalty in the trade channel. So this is oriented not towards individual final consumers, but towards retailers, distributors, other intermediaries that help you commercialize your product. Also, a role of integrated marketing communication is that of contributing to the segmentation of consumers. Why? Because you develop and transmit messages that appeal to the needs and the wants and desires of those specific segments that you have identified and selected as your targets. So if you have clarity of who the profile of consumers you go after, then your promotional activities should be aligned and consistent to match those segments. At the same time, creating a difference in the minds of those consumers between your brand and competitors. That's another goal, to contribute to the differentiation, and this is done through your promotions, through your commercials, through your public relations, through your salespeople, right? Through personal selling. You want to convince why you are not the same as the other brand. And this has to do, of course, with the positioning strategy, because at the end, not the only, but one of the major purposes of brand promotions is to resonate in consumers' mind, that they remember you. This is what is called the top of mind. If I ask you, tell me a brand of toothpaste or a detergent or something like that, well, what are the first 2 or 3 brands that come up to your mind, and how they are positioned, right? In terms of other brands, which is the external positioning, and in terms of brands within the same company. For example, Coca-Cola Company, they have a wide variety of soft drinks and iced tea and other drinks. Well, they are part of the same company, the same product line within Coca-Cola portfolio. How are they differentiated, one and the others? Not against Pepsi, but among themselves. That is the internal positioning. And let's not forget and neglect that out of the different departments in a firm, in an organization, marketing is the only department that has revenue generation as its primary purpose. I'm not saying the others don't contribute, but the one that has revenues and profits as its primary purpose is marketing. Human resources, they are in something else. They contribute, but that's not their primary purpose. Production, engineering, and design, they have other functions. Finance and legal and other departments do not have this clear, direct, primary objective as marketing does in terms of generating revenues and profit. Now we're getting close to the final part of this chapter, but before that, let's briefly review what are promotion objectives. Promotion objectives have to do with determining whether you are pursuing a primary demand stimulation or a selective demand stimulation. What is one? Well, primary demand is the promotion aimed at creating demand for a product category. If you have seen these commercials and the jingle and the slogans of avocado for Mexico, well, that is trying to stimulate primary demand for a category which is avocados, not of a particular brand, but just avocados, which is a different case of this type of commercial that we see for FedEx, which is selective demand stimulation. Promotion aimed at stimulating demand for a specific brand. Another decision has to do with going for direct response promotion or delay response promotion. What is each of these? Well, direct response promotion asks the receiver of the message to act immediately. For example, this coupon that we see here of Mr. Clean, $1.50 off, that is trying to trigger and encourage the consumer to take advantage of that now. However, a commercial like the one we saw of Apple's Macintosh 1984 commercial, that is more a delay response promotion, relies more on imagery and message themes to emphasize the brand's benefits or positive qualities, but these are more to encourage the customer to purchase at a later date. And of course, we have promotion activities that are focused on a brand, right? And others more on the corporate advertising, right? We have, I don't know, Tide for a brand of detergent and Procter & Gamble or P&G for the corporation. Now, to finish this chapter, let's briefly review economic impacts of promotion. Why is it important, and why do we have this type of courses in a business program? Not only because we want to fill the curriculum and the program with some material for you to spend more time in college, but it's because this is a real important part of the marketing activity that deserves a whole semester for this. Not only because it helps the business function and perform better, but also it has an impact on society as a whole in the economic growth and development. And this is something measured in terms of gross domestic products. So as part of the marketing mix, promotion increases the gross domestic product indirectly by working with product pricing and distribution decisions that at the end, they are aimed to stimulate sales. And sales, transactions, production and commercial activities are the ones that contribute to gross domestic products, among other variables, of course. There is also an impact on business cycle when promotions are implemented. They have a stabilizing effect on downturns in business activity, in peaks and valleys, right, in recessions. That's why many companies increase promotion and advertisement during recession, right? Um, the impact on competition, here we can talk about two views or positions. Um, on one side, promotion can stimulate competition and motivate firms to strive for better products and better production methods that at the end benefit the economy as a whole. But also, promotion can act as a barrier to competition in cases where it is prohibitive, right? Especially in certain business sectors and product categories for which, in order to compete, you really have to counter the competitors' strategies by investing a large budget in promotional activities. What about the impacts on pricing? Well, the cost of advertising and promotion is built into the cost, right? It's a variable cost of the enterprise, of the business activity, which is ultimately passed to consumers. However, we should balance this view by considering that there are cost savings for the consumers as well in terms of reduced time and effort that consumers spend searching and looking for information to make a purchase decision. So promotion and advertising informs consumers to make better decisions, right? So you don't have to spend time and effort comparing and looking around. And of course, this also has an impact in terms of the economies of scales, because the larger the stimulation of production, the greater the economies of scale. If a factory produces more in a larger volume, the unitary costs and the savings are reflected because of the economies of scale. If we see this exhibit here on your screen, we can also tell that depending on the industry, some sectors require a higher proportion of advertising and promotional spending in relation to sales. So again, this is not a single type of a scenario for all firms and all businesses, but you have to carefully analyze and look when you do your marketing plan how this is reflected in the case of the context of your industry. Also, for the consumers, in the perspective of consumers, promotion has an impact on value because it helps create greater value in the minds of consumers. When you feel that a brand is more popular, right? Like in the symbolic value case that we see here, or it has better functionality and quality, you appreciate more the brand. If you recall, maybe in your case, you purchase a product or a brand, and if you see that brand advertised and other people use it, you feel that you've made a good decision. And if other people buy it, and if this business is advertising heavily and is well received by consumers, it's because the brand, something must be good about the brand, right? That's something that's often you will feel as consumers. Finally, this is just an outline of what is coming for the rest of these chapters in the course. In the first part of the textbook, we will go on an introduction to brand promotion and integrated marketing communication, which are the first 3 chapters. Then part 2, we will go over understanding how promotion industry works and how buyers make decisions. 3, which is the I'm not going to say the core or the central part of this course, but these are the tools of the promotional mix. Part 3 explores how the variety of promotional tools can be used in a complete, effective, integrated marketing campaign. Here we see, in addition to advertising, which is what we talk about mostly in the first two parts, we look at internet, direct marketing, self-promotion and point of purchase, sponsorship, product placement, and branded entertainment, public relations, influencer marketing, social media, and corporate advertising, and personal selling and sales management. And we close with the measurement of effectiveness in brand promotion. So this is what we will look in the course, and here I finish this first chapter.